Hi everyone, this is Pastor Josh here for your midweek message, and we're continuing on with the Beatitudes this week. Last week we learned about Jesus as a lawyer, and this week we're talking about Jesus as the judge. And I'm sure no one will believe me, but I planned this series in January actually, and yet I really find it fascinating how God works, in that what we talk about has everyday ramifications, especially this week. You know, judges are all in the media, and both from confirmation hearings and you know, executive orders being stopped and all of that. And again, I don't want to. I'm not trying to get into political espousings, but I do find that it's very interesting that the week I'm going to talk about Jesus as the judge, we're talking a whole lot about judges. Needless to say, here or there, in this week's text, we have Jesus ratcheting up or explaining parts of the law for people. And he is, and I've cited these texts for the last couple weeks just briefly, but this week we're going to kind of go into them. And it's interesting because Jesus is he's talking about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, and how originally the letter of the law was good enough, even though people couldn't keep it. But that over time, we as people, we pervert the law. We use the law to gain our own advantage. And one of those was Jesus was talked about that people shouldn't divorce their wives unless there's sexual promiscuity, and if you do, then you're forcing your wife to commit adultery, because people would use the loose laws of the time or cultural norms of the time to divorce their wives for all kinds of reasons. If you didn't cook well, you're out. You could get a divorce. There were certain times when, again, divorce was more rigid or less rigid, and it looks like in Jesus' time, he wouldn't have made the edict if it wasn't an issue, that people were divorcing their wives pretty freely. And what's the spirit under that law is that people should stay together, that relationships matter. I don't think that means that Jesus is saying, hey, if you're being physically abused or assaulted, you should still stay with your wife or husband. That's not what the spirit of the law means. It's not an authoritarian end-all be-all. What Jesus is trying to do is across the board, he's trying to get people to be reflective of what the law is really about. And it's about respecting life. It's about helping people. It's about care for one another. It's about finding the compassion that's there and truly caring about people. It's not just not killing people. If we just walked around and said, the bare minimum of life is don't kill people, well, that's really not it. I mean, we wouldn't have a society. We need a world where people care about one another. And that's probably one of the issues I think our country is seriously facing, is that we don't care about people. It's just about, can I get mine? What's in it for me? And then we see this in stock market, we see this in education, we see this in a myriad of things where capitalism runs amok, in my opinion. And I see it where people just don't care about people. We want to use people. And it is against the divine order. It is against everything God stands for. God is not about using people. God is not about taking advantage of people. God is not about those things. God is about a peaceable kingdom. He's about equality. He's about justice for all. He's about kindness and equity, and that's the biblical way. And there's some hard statements in that. There is turn the other cheek. There is love your neighbor as yourself. There is render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and unto God what is God. What do those mean? And they mean different things at different times because we encounter new situations. And so that's why there's biblical interpretation. That's why we struggle with the text. That's why I do one of these videos every week, because our world changes while the God's presence in our lives, hopefully, remains the same. If we tap in, if we engage in that presence remains the same. And so it is our calm in the center of chaos. And so this judge that comes that, you know, gives this legal opinion and says, hey, this is what the law really means. This is what the law really could do. Because laws or policies are meant to help govern the people. It's meant to help the people maintain order, to maintain community. That's the whole point of laws or rules, both secular laws and religious laws. And so that's something I don't think we think about. And so it's something that Jesus definitely talks about in the Beatitudes, and we'll talk more about it on Sunday. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you on Sunday.